Happy Wednesday. My name is Beverly Hasford, and this is Erin Nitschke. We are here with the National Federation of Professional Trainers, the NFPT. We are a personal training certification company. NFPT is located in Indiana, and I am in Montana, and Erin is in Wyoming. Super fun. We're all over the place. Gotta love digital connections.
Yeah.
Joining us today, say hello, tell us where you are, what state are you in, where do you live, and today we're talking about caffeine and fitness, coffee, energy drinks, all that good stuff. We're going to get into that a little bit, talk about the science, talk a little bit about how it affects you when you're working out, and maybe the timing of it, how you can play into your picture. So how are you today, Erin, in Wyoming?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Yeah.
Good. Lots of snow there still?
We do have a lot of snow. We got a lot of snow, and it's been hard to get snow tires put on our cars because everybody's trying to get snow tires put on because the snow came so quickly and in such abundance.
Yeah.
We are very blessed to be able to get snow tires on our cars because it's definitely an extra expense.
Yeah, for sure. We have no snow currently. I'm looking out my window and like nothing.
Yeah. I need that snow. That's my favorite sport is skiing. So
yeah.
I'm out there in the mountains and getting nice and far out there away from all of the crazies. I got to get snow tires to get me out there. It's kind of like my gym membership time of year. So I've see we've got some hellos from April. She's got her question. Thank you, April, for pulling that question up to remind us. And Billy's saying hello from headquarters in Indiana. So, yeah, if you're just joining us, say hello and tell us where you are located. Yeah. Erin, you want to kick us off with some talk about caffeine? Where do you want to start?
Oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about with caffeine. I'm a fan of it. I like it. Some days I think it's the only thing that gets me through the day. But there is a science to it. And I think most of the information most people have probably heard about, but maybe don't quite understand how caffeine works in the body. It's the most widely used, probably abused, and accepted drug, quote unquote drug out there on the market. Comes in a variety of forms, coffee, tea, chocolate, energy drinks, anything and everything really. Supplements, it's often an ingredient in supplements and dietary supplements. And it's referred to as a stimulant. But I think the interesting thing about caffeine, and one of our writers actually touched on this too, Kathleen, saying that, yes, it's determined to be a stimulant. That's how it's classified. But it's actually not. It's more of a substance that blocks neurotransmitters that promote relaxation and sedation. So that's why it gives us that energy boost, because it's kind of nullifying or muting those neurotransmitters that would be otherwise responsible for letting us relax, which is another reason why we say don't have it before you go to bed, because you'll just lay awake and most likely.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's not so much that it gives you energy. It just keeps you from feeling sleepy. And one of the hormones we talked about in the sleep episodes, adenosine, it blocks adenosine, which is the sleepy. It's what makes you feel sleepy. It's a hormone that starts building from the time you wake up, and you have the coffee and you block that, and then your body doesn't feel as tired. Although sometimes I still, even if I have some caffeine, which I'm very sensitive to it, I have some caffeine, I still feel tired even though I have the caffeine. And so it's very interesting the way it affects each of us. And if you're just tuning in, we'd like to know, do you drink caffeine, yes or no? And what do you drink? What's your caffeine of choice? Mine is generally dark chocolate. And I get dark chocolate with coconut palm sugar in it, because every dark chocolate has cane sugar in it. So I kind of like the coconut palm sugar. So I get that kind of chocolate. And then occasionally I'll have some decaf coffee because I cannot handle
fully loaded.
If I have a full cup of coffee, look out. And it's funny because when I have the decaf, I feel the caffeine. And most people probably don't know that there's actually some caffeine still in that decaf. I mean, they try to extract as much of it out as they can, sometimes with really bad chemical processes, but I can still feel the caffeine in decaf for sure. And other than that, I'll have like black tea sometimes with some honey in it. Yep. And then on a rare occasion, I'll have some like yerba mate or that stuff is like crack for me. So what's your caffeine of choice, Erin?
I am an English breakfast tea person. I love it. And hi, Myra. I just see her comment about you both are matching.
Yep.
And just for our viewers, no, we do not call each other beforehand and ask what color we're wearing. This is just the synchronicity of minds thinking alike, apparently. But yeah, so I'm a huge black tea drinker. I really like it. We'll typically put some raw honey in it, a little splash of like coconut milk or regular milk, whatever. Occasionally I'll have like a soy milk latte, just plain, no flavor. And when I have that, yeah, like I can definitely feel the big difference between the two. Yeah. So I have a bit of a sensitivity to it as well. So I definitely can't drink it all day long, even though I would like to, especially in the winter when it's warm, there's a warm cup there. So I have to watch it a little bit. Otherwise I'll be wired for like a week.
Yeah. Well, and thanks guys for participating. We've got Billy saying coffee always black and 70% chocolate. And Myra says we roast our own. That's awesome. Right. Because one thing that's definitely important to know, I think, about caffeine right off the bat is depending on how it's cooked or roasted, there can be chemicals in it. So I think is that why you roast it at home, Myra? Is it because of the chemicals, or do you guys just have a certain one that you like? But I think it's definitely important if you're going to drink coffee or have caffeine to go with high quality always, or organic. Try to not have the chemicals in it. So. But yeah, I want to talk about this whole idea of like how caffeine blocks adenosine. So, kind of interesting how we talked about sleep the last couple of weeks and how we ideally want cortisol to rise in the morning so that we get that, like what feels like a caffeine boost when you wake up, and delay the caffeine until 9 or 10, which we lovingly call happy hour amongst our friends. That, if you didn't catch our sleep episodes, you can catch up on those. We could post them in the comments. But we talked about how like it might be a good idea to get up every morning and let your body produce cortisol and wake itself up, and then delay your caffeine or coffee until 9 or 10 if you can. And if you're currently drinking it to wake up, then maybe just gradually move it later every day and let your body start to produce cortisol again. And then from there, let's talk about how like fitness fits into this. So April asked about having coffee or caffeine 30 minutes before her workout. Yeah,
there are some great ergogenic benefits to caffeine. It's long been touted for its benefits for sure, but I think you need to have an understanding of how it actually works, because there can be a downside to it. But 30 minutes before a workout or an hour before, fine, especially for an endurance event, or some sort of workout that's probably going to last a little bit longer than 90 minutes. It will actually delay at least your perception of the onset of fatigue. I feel like it's a little bit more of a mental thing than it is a physical thing, because it's not a macronutrient. So it's not a carbohydrate, unless of course you're getting like a soy latte beforehand and it's got some sugar and it's got some, protein. Might not be such a bad like pre-workout snack of sorts. So yeah, 30 minutes to an hour, completely fine. It can definitely give you that edge to complete a workout, or you're not as tired. But it's really about like the mental effect, and your perception of how tired you are. It can lower your rate of perceived exertion. So you might actually be working at a 9, but it might only feel like a 6, depending on how much you have or how your body responds. Mm-hmm. Another interesting thing about caffeine, like Bev, you started to mention about it kind of antagonizes adenosine. And we touched on this a little bit in our sleep episode as well, but it actually, and adenosine can build up in the muscles during a workout. So if you have the caffeine and it kind of blocks that, then it can, again, delay the onset of fatigue. And adenosine can reduce force output. So if caffeine blocks that, there's a chance that you might be able to get some stronger contractions. You do have that caffeine. So there are some great ergogenic benefits. It's used in Olympic sports. It's used in high school sports. And it's used enough that there's actually a ban on the amount of caffeine that an athlete can have. So that if they do a urine test and it's above like the 15 micrograms per so many milliliters, that person can be disqualified from drinking, 8 to 10 cups of coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's definitely legit in terms of its benefits and its ability to kind of delay that fatigue.
Yeah. And that's where me as an injury specialist over the years, not directly like healing injuries of people because I'm not a physical therapist, but I specialize in biomechanics. So after people have been through a surgery, an injury, gone to see a physical therapist, they come see me for specialized training to help retrain their movement. And I've always found that people were just almost working too hard. Like, I feel like people are either not working hard enough or they're working too hard. Just the way we are as human beings, we're always doing too much or too little. And I worry about people having caffeine and then hitting it too hard, working too hard, not paying attention to their body. And like for me, I usually don't have caffeine when I work out because I feel like 10 minutes into working out, I get that endorphin rush and I get the energy boost. So I usually just try to get myself into the workout and I try to do things that I enjoy because then that's why I ski, because then it's easy to justify going to work out. But I had a little caffeine on Sunday before I went skiing just to see what it was like. And I do feel like it gave me more endurance, but I started falling down a little more than I wanted to at the end of my workout because I think I didn't feel my body tiring. So I didn't slow down. I just kept going at like that same pace that I started with. So I think it can be a downside too, as far as the body awareness piece and basically losing touch with the fact, just like it delayed, then you can't feel sleepy. And I kind of wonder, like, why do we think that being sleepy is so bad? like why do we think awake is good and sleepy is bad? Like what's wrong with just feeling a little sleepy? Like we have such a negative association with it.
We do. That's a fair point. I think I have a negative feeling like that way too. Now that you bring it up, I'm like, yeah, I fear that feeling of being tired sometimes, especially if I have a lot of work to do or I have to put my brain to use and like write something or grade papers or interact with humans. I mean, sometimes I don't want to be sleepy. So
yeah. Maybe because sleep is like one step closer to death and we just generally fear death. Not to get too philosophical here on a Wednesday, but
yeah, that's a little deep for before, we've had a true happy hour, glass of wine or whatever. Don't need to get philosophical right now.
But yeah, I just think it's interesting to re-examine the relationship we have with being sleepy versus being awake and alert. And then also if you're needing that caffeine to like get you going or to like keep you awake, like taking a look then one step back to your sleep habits and seeing what is going on. Cause I've been blown away by like waking up. I have never woken up at a regular time until I had a child. And I'm just blown away with how I get that burst of energy in the morning if I got a good night's sleep. And if I wake up around the same time, my body's just like ready to go. How long that energy lasts, now that just depends on other things. But I was always like a groggy morning person. It would take me hours to wake up to the day. And I could never really have caffeine because it would make me so like jittery and anxious and it would drop my blood sugar. So what's the mechanism there, Erin, with caffeine and blood sugar?
Oh, interesting. So could be a couple of things, but one interesting thing that I just want to touch on for a second that you mentioned, your sensitivity. One thing that people might not realize is that there's a genetic component. So it's not so much about a calorie or a substance as it is your body's chemistry, your individual body's chemistry. Bev's is different than mine. Hers is different than her son's. So it's about how we as humans respond to some sort of substance that we put into our body. And so with that, there are some people that are super sensitive to caffeine if they have this certain variant in their genetic code. But then there are those people that it literally doesn't affect at all. And I'm so glad I'm not one of those people, but there are those that really, their body just doesn't respond the same way. And the same thing to be said with, it's one of those like kind of cumulative drugs, so to speak. So you can build up that tolerance to it. And that means you would need more and more to get to elicit the same response. If you're somebody that is sensitive to caffeine, you can build up that tolerance if you continue to consume it at regular intervals or throughout the week. So being somebody that's sensitive to caffeine is probably one reason that it affects your body chemistry that way, and that you see that decline in your blood sugar and kind of makes you a little bit woozy. And it's also increasing cortisol. Caffeine will keep that cortisol level higher, especially after a workout too. So whether you drink it before and after, there are some benefits to having it before and maybe a downside to having it after. So especially for somebody like you that's apparently super sensitive and you get that kind of hypoglycemic effect. That's no. So
no. Then I want to eat more because I get hungry.
Well, yeah.
Myra wants to know if coffee boosts your metabolism. Hello, Gail. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Gail.
And Billy says a day without coffee is like...
Just kidding.
Says coffee and more coffee. I should probably drink less coffee. I love hot tea at night too, but oh gosh. I hope you're not having coffee before bed, but let's go to Myra's question here. Does coffee boost your metabolism?
Well, it's not necessarily coffee. So with caffeine, it can increase the availability of free roaming fatty acids in your body, which can be used as a fuel source. So that's one benefit to it is you're utilizing more free fatty acids to accomplish whatever workout you're doing. There are some, and I haven't dived into the specific research with that, but there are some schools of thought on different substances that caffeine is paired with that can boost the metabolism. Caffeine is also an appetite suppressant. So it may mean that you don't, unless you're Bev and your blood sugar drops to the floor, it might mean that you're not hungry. You know, if you have like, you know, say a large iced tea or a big cup of coffee or something, you might not feel hungry because caffeine is a natural appetite suppressant, which is one reason that it's included in things like diet pills and dietary supplements. It's that piece of, you know, you're adding some sort of stimulant, so to speak, to a substance or to something that you're taking, and then you're kind of muting that hunger cue. So whether it directly increases your resting metabolic rate, not so much, but what it's paired with and how the body reacts to it, you can burn a few more calories, like we were saying with exercise. If it delays that onset of fatigue or your perception of being tired, you can keep going, and therefore you're going to burn more calories over that same 30-minute period of time, say if you didn't have caffeine. But that's not a one-size-fits-all thing, because again, it's about your individual body chemistry too. Does that help, Myra? Or did I go off the rails, which I tend to do?
No, that's such a good explanation. Totally. It's like there's always these secondary factors. So the caffeine, like you said, suppresses appetite, might make you think you're losing weight or have a higher metabolism, or the caffeine boosts your ability to exercise, which might cause you to lose weight, which then makes you think that you have a higher metabolism. But at the core of it, it sounds like you're saying no, it does not directly boost it raises my heart rate a little bit. And
for sure. Yeah.
That elevates cortisol, and cortisol helps us feel alert and awake, but in too many doses, cortisol and epinephrine are both released by the adrenals, and too much adrenaline and cortisol can seem good in the short term, but in the long term can be a problem, because we know that cortisol inhibits sleep. So we're starting to really come full circle here with our talks about sleep and cortisol and adenosine.
Yeah.
I feel like, it's like it all starts with, you know, you're resting, you're sleeping, and then you're adding these factors during the day to stay awake, and then you're back to sleeping, and too much of one or the other can inhibit the other. Yeah, I must have the caffeine gene, as you're saying.
Yeah, you must have some.
To caffeine? Tell us yes or no if you're sensitive to caffeine. And did we get to April's question? I think we kind of covered it as far as like the timing, and then the caffeine.
Yeah,
it can prolong your workout a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, it's again so individualized that if that works for you 30 minutes before, I think it's fine. there are some people that can't just have caffeine on an empty stomach because it will create gastric distress for some, not for everybody. So there are some people that can have the coffee, but they need to eat something with it. So think food first, because again, caffeine itself is just a substance. It's not a macronutrient. It alone as that substance does not carry any caloric value. So it's not a carb, it's not a protein, it's not a fat. And your body uses those macronutrients. That's what your body runs off of, or those three things, protein being the last one. So don't think of it in terms of caffeine giving you energy. It can simply kind of boost the workout a little bit. So I always recommend to people that you have, especially if you're an early morning exerciser, and it's fine if you work out in a fasted state, that's not going to hurt you necessarily. But if you're somebody that really feels like they need something along with your coffee, it might be better to pair it with something food wise, so that you make sure that you get some calories into your body to be able to perform that workout.
Yeah. And I think that we really just have to find the right rhythm for ourselves. Like, I think because I'm sensitive to caffeine, my rhythm works best if I wake up and I let my body produce cortisol, and I have something to eat, usually like in the first hour. And then if I'm going to exercise, I like to do it right. I like to eat before I exercise. Then I'll do it like soon. I'll do it like 30 minutes or 45 after I eat. Mm-hmm. And then the caffeine just comes into play, like usually depending on like how, like if I just did like a gentle workout like yoga, then I might want some caffeine. But if I went and did a cardio workout, then I may not want to add more cortisol or like more stress to my body with the caffeine. So I think you just have to kind of find the right layering for yourself. Like what's the right order of events? And like you said last week or the week before, Erin, our bodies like that predictability. Like they like homeostasis. They like to know what to expect. And I did some reading on circadian rhythm. And I mean, you can really train your body. Like if you exercise at the same time every day, you can train your body to muster up that energy that it needs to exercise because it's expecting to do that versus changing. And I've just never been a creature of routine like that. And I think that there's probably something to that, to let your body expect what's happening.
Yeah, I think the body is much easier to train and trick than the mind. So yeah, you can definitely train your body and those internal mechanisms that regulate those sleep-wake cycles much easier than you can up here in that mental, getting that mental motivation or that intrinsic motivation going.
Give that. So just, if anything, try to give your body a little bit of predictability. And I see we've got more people joining us as we go here. So if you just jumped into the show, tell us what kind of caffeine you drink and ask any questions. Let's look at some of these questions, Erin. Why do folks put butter unsalted? That's a good one. Do you want to take that one?
Are you talking about the bulletproof coffee phenomenon?
Well, or even just, I mean, I know, like, I heard that you're supposed to put fat in your coffee, with like to help with the acidity, maybe, or something.
Yes. I think there's some concern with things like putting cream in coffee because some creamers have carrageenan in them, and apparently that can be a negative substance to keep putting into your body. There's more and more research coming out about that, but honestly, I feel like the bulletproof coffee phenomenon is just that. It's like a fad with caffeine. But in addition, like if it's a natural butter, which is, derived from like 2 ingredients, if it's salted, it's probably a whole lot better than some randomly chemically processed creamer with the hazelnut flavor, spice, whatever. I don't know. I mean, I can go either way with it. I don't see it as a health benefit, but I think there might be worse things that you could put into a coffee drink. But as far as like it being this magic bullet, no. No.
That's the only reason I ever like coffee is the Starbucks pumpkin spice latte. Oh gosh, the thing was so good, inside out, but so tasty. And I've tried making my own version, like with pumpkin spice and almond milk and whatever. It's just not the same. But I do think that real quick.
I think that we should note Billy's question about the absorbability of the MCT oil and see what we can find on that.
Yeah, definitely. We can definitely look at that. Gail says, cup of coffee in the morning, only after drinking water. That's a really great point, Gail.
Awesome.
Thank you for doing that. When you wake up in the morning, you have not had, well, you likely have not had any water all night or food. So yeah, that's my first thought in the morning, Gail. I get up, I actually keep a glass of water next to my bed just for that purpose, so that when I wake up in the morning, it's right there and I can just suck it down. And that way it's the first thing I do, and I swear it helps me wake up. April says, I use Shakio. Thank you to my chai. The chai is just a bonus. It sounds like some kind of shake or something.
Yeah, I've never. Are you talking about Shakeology, or is this like another?
Probably. It sounds like a Shakeology. And if I'm thinking of the right person she's talking about, I think, yeah, she's a Shakeology person. So
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, just finding that right timing, I think, can be really important, because a lot of what I read talked about that. Like, we're all different levels of sensitivity to caffeine, and then depending on when you use it and how you use it, it's going to have different effects. And so as a personal trainer, I think it's just really important going back. Like, this is just another thing that a personal trainer should have tabs on, because if your client is drinking caffeine or not, if they're drinking it in the morning or the afternoon, it is impacting what you are trying to achieve with them for their results. And it could be raising their stress levels. It could be lowering their stress levels. I don't know. It just depends on their mental stress. So yeah, I think it's really important for personal trainers not to advise how much caffeine or, when to drink it, but just to simply get clients to tune in. Like, just ask them, like, when people say to you, like, is caffeine good or bad? The best thing to say is, what do you think? And how does it make you feel? And people will tell you, they'll be like, well, I can't go poop without it, or
right.
I can't open my eyes without it. That might be a little bit of an issue, You can't open your eyes without it. Not being able to poop without it might also be an issue.
It is a natural laxative, but then again, so is coconut milk. So
always bringing poop into the episode.
Hey, we're moms. Poop is our life. I tell you. And I have a hard time like classifying things as good or bad. There's nutritious, and then there are things that might not feed the body in such a way that it helps us perform better. So I don't really I'm not of the camp that's like, this is good, this is bad, don't cross the line.
Yeah.
I feel like, living in those types of restrictions and that extremism is difficult. So I think that's something to be mindful of as a trainer. And I also think as a personal trainer or health professional, or just personally, if you're keeping a food log and you're asking your clients to keep a food log and you're having them log everything they eat or drink, I think you need to make sure that you're asking them to log whatever else they're taking in. So does that mean that you're taking a supplement? And does your client really know if caffeine is an ingredient? Because oftentimes there's a lot of caffeine. I mean, the equivalent of 2 or 3 cups in a single little white pill that's purported to block fat or whatever the latest thing is. So I think it's important to make sure that you as the trainer are knowledgeable of what they're taking in and do your part to educate them about, are you aware that X has this in it?
Yeah.
And that might be where we're seeing some disconnects. I mean, obviously as trainers, it's not our job or wheelhouse to even promote the use of supplements, but nonetheless, people are going to use them whether we tell them to or not. So doing your best versus the prevention, the education, and letting them make that informed choice.
Yeah.
But the hidden caffeine is important. There are a lot of people that don't know that chocolate has caffeine, or that there's caffeinated gum. Really? When did that happen? So being aware of things like that, I think, is important, because it's not just caffeine in a liquid form.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think, personal trainers absolutely have the role to scrutinize and question and be a critic and be a devil's advocate, and ask your client, like, what are you putting into this body that we're trying to, make slimmer or bring more energy to, or make more muscle, whatever it is. And so, just really paying attention and getting them to pay attention, I think, is huge. And I want to talk about half-life for 1 second before we go, but I want to bring up Irene's comment. first thing I do in the morning is drink water, then drink coffee. My family's from Greece. Greece even drink a coffee and a glass of water with their coffee. Drink coffee and a glass of water with their coffee simultaneously. All right.
Nice.
Sounds very interesting. Love learning about other cultures.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Chocolate covered espresso beans. Yes, please, Billy.
Double whammy.
Yep. Billy, you just like to have fun. You are fun. So I wanted to just mention half-life real quick with coffee, because we did talk about in the sleep episodes delaying coffee till 7 hours before bedtime. But because the half-life basically means that the half-life is when half of it is gone from your body, and it takes 6 to 7 hours. And I read that coffee or caffeine can stay in your body long beyond that. They didn't say what long beyond was, which was kind of frustrating, the article I was reading. But I know for a fact, I think even if I have a little caffeine at the right time, I feel like it disrupts my sleep a little bit. I feel like I wake up and the blankets are just wrapped around me in a circle.
Like you're just turning circles over and over. Yeah, and I think I would venture to guess that is another that genetic component. Yeah. We've got a lot of, there's a lot of great literature. The body of literature is very robust in our field, and especially with looking at ergogenic aids such as caffeine. But how much of it, they've taken these people and they've done this study, they're in the control group, they're in the placebo group, they're in the whatever group, and how they react to whatever group they're in is to some degree influenced by their genetic code. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to know that when you're looking at these research studies, and not maybe make such a sweeping generalization that, looking at your client through the eyes of that research, because they weren't involved in that study, and chances are they didn't do genetic typing to find out who has this variant and who has that variant. So making sure that you apply the information appropriately, or at least build your knowledge and talk to them a little bit about, these are some things to consider, because you'll probably, unless they go and do some sort of genetic test to check for sensitivities or something, chances are as a trainer, you're not going to know that information when they come to you. So again, when you look at research, don't just say, this is my client, because that's the hard part, is we don't really know. So our hands are tied in some respect with that too.
I agree. And I think trainers, there's some great guidelines out there when you get certified, and great protocols to follow with how long people should exercise for and how intense, and whether you should have caffeine or not. But I really think the best job you can do as a personal trainer is to help your clients tune into how they're feeling. So when they say is caffeine good for bad for me? I don't know. How does it make you feel? Ask questions when do you have it? What do you have it with? Does it ever make you moody? Does it ever make you cranky? People may not, when you say, how does it make you feel? That might be too open-ended. You might need to say, does it ever make you cranky? Does it ever make you moody? Does it ever make you hungry? Have you ever noticed that you're not hungry afterwards? And they might be actually, now that you mention it, I am kind of a jerk after I have, because I've noticed sometimes I've been with people who are having caffeine and I don't like who they turn into, just some people when they have alcohol. You're no, thank you. You need to chill out. You're up here and I'm down here right now. You must have had way too much caffeine. So
I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, and people might need you to be that mirror for them and say what's going on after you have your caffeine? Are you able to focus more? Are you, or what's going on? Right. I'm cranky if I don't have coffee.
So it makes Billy happy. We will make sure Billy has his coffee. Yeah. I do like that point a lot, Bev, because oftentimes, unless we put something in front of someone, it's the same way with trying to figure out an elimination diet. If somebody's having some sort of sensitivity or reaction, a change in their health status or physical wellness feeling, trying to do an elimination diet. Because oftentimes we don't really pay attention to we don't mindfully eat or mindfully drink. So it's not like we sit there and we appreciate the taste and the texture and that type of stuff with our food, because we're humans. We have a nature that's difficult to retrain and to evolve in a different direction. So I think putting those questions in front of someone and making them think about it brings a level of awareness beyond what they came to you with. And so if you ask them, well, how does it make you feel? And give them an assignment. I do this with my students. I make them do a mindful eating activity and they feel like total freaks the first time they do it. But then they're trying to make me happy when they say, oh, I loved it. But yeah, making sure that like you help them pay attention to natural cues their body gives them. Because otherwise we don't do that unless they take that moment and go, oh,
yeah,
when I do drink milk, I don't feel very good. Let's maybe take a look at that. Same thing with caffeine.
Yeah. And sometimes they just need to voice that to someone and admit it and put it out there and then they can make that change. So yeah. And sometimes you just need to list out some of the symptoms to someone and then they can just say like, oh, you say that. Because otherwise the natural response a lot of times when you say, how does it make you feel? Is like,
good. I don't know. I've never really paid attention.
For a workout today. But yeah, I think if you can give them some options, like even, when I would do food journaling with people, I would say like, how did that meal make you feel? Did it give you energy or not? Because people would be like, is this food good for me? And I always would say, well, does it give you energy? Because that's what food's supposed to do. It should give you energy. If you feel tired after you eat something, it's a pretty good sign that you either ate too much. Right meal. Yeah, it wasn't the right meal. Or if you can't poop for like a day afterwards.
Maybe too much cheese. Maybe we back off on the cheese.
I go with poop again. We've got caffeine or not, but drink water throughout your workouts and afterwards. Thank you for that reminder. Because doesn't caffeine, I've read both ways that coffee dehydrates you. And I've also read that it actually has, I think most recently I read that it does still hydrate you. Gail says, absent of coffee when the body is used.
So
absence of coffee when the body is used to it can cause a caffeine headache. Why does that happen?
It's basically a natural withdrawal. So caffeine is a drug. It does affect neurotransmitters in your body or in your brain. So when we take that stimulant, that neurotransmitter blocker away, the body has to readjust to not having that. It's kind of like when you're on, I guess an antidepressant would be a really good example. Because again, that's something that acts with brain chemistry. Same way with caffeine. So when we take that away, there are often very serious withdrawal symptoms. Like some people will get migraines for a couple of weeks. Usually it doesn't last longer than that. There can be nausea, dizziness, sleepiness. There's a whole host of issues. So that's really what's going on is your body is all of a sudden cold turkey being denied this thing that it got hooked on. And I always tell people that if you're trying to make a change and you really feel like caffeine is something that's not good for you personally, then try to make it a gradual withdrawal. So instead of having a 16-ounce latte one day, break it down to 10 ounces or, kind of slowly bring it out of your body. So it's not just such a shock. Chances are you're still going to have a headache. You're still going to have to deal with that. Because again, it's a drug of sorts that your body has become to expect or to rely upon in some ways.
Yeah, that's great. I would love to hire you if I needed to make a change. You would be my behavior change coach.
Right back at you.
If no one else has questions today, I think that's good. We covered it pretty well rounded. Does anybody have anything they want us to talk about next week with the holidays coming up? Is there anything that you're struggling with or anything you want to know about? Because we thought we might do something around that. So speak now if you have any opinions on that. Otherwise, we're thinking about doing an episode all about cortisol next week because we've talked about cortisol's impact on sleep, cortisol's impact on being awake. We have a great article on our site about cortisol and exercise, and we just think it's a great hormone to maybe rediscover. And maybe we'll even kind of backtrack it to adrenals a little and just kind of re-educate people on that because it does play in. Gail says thanks.
Oh, good. Glad that helped. I think with the cortisol, I think that's important because I think so often it's cast in a negative light and we can't live without it. We absolutely need it, but there's a downside to having it elevated all the time. And again, with repeated exposure of caffeine throughout the day, it can keep those levels elevated.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Eric's here. What about sleep aids? Either getting to sleep and staying asleep. Yeah.
So the sleep aids that sorry.
I was going to say we did talk about these a little bit in our sleep episodes, and I'm trying to remember what our conclusion was.
So with the sleep aids, it depends on what kind it is, for one. But say if it's just like a general, Unisom or I think it's diphenhydramine. I don't know, but I'm not a chemist, but it's something like that. So the biggest thing with that is making sure that you have at least an 8 to 9 hour period if you're going to take it. Because they can often leave you feeling hungover the next day. Say you're laying in bed and it's like 11 p.m. and you have to get up at say 5. If you go and take that Unisom or whatever off-brand it is, you're not going to function well the next day, most likely. Because again, your body didn't have that 8 to 9 hours it needs to process that and to get that sleep.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's bad every once in a while. Maybe if you've had a very difficult time over the course of maybe a week trying to sleep, but I would try some other things first and even though they say they're not addictive, it can become a habit, I guess. Like you rely on that to go to sleep or think that you rely on it. But again, it's making sure that you've got that period of time to be able to sleep, because otherwise it kind of it backfires, I guess.
Yeah. And in the sleep episodes, Eric, we talked about how if you're waking up during the night, it might be because of high cortisol levels, which there's a lot of mechanisms behind that, which may be going to bed a little too late, or you're not getting enough sleep in general. So your cortisol is riding high. So definitely in the comments earlier, I posted the sleep science episode. Maybe take a look at that. Oh my goodness. We got some comments here. Angie says maybe tryptophan is a turkey function. We can definitely talk about tryptophan briefly next week. Portion control and eating habits. We usually offer eating routine. How do we handle healthy eating at holiday? Okay. Vikrant says, is it true that if you drink coffee every day in the morning, your body gets used to it and having another cup before workouts almost doesn't really help at all?
That's a good question. Most healthy adults can have 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day. And I say healthy if there's not like cardiac issues, there's not other drug issues, or you're not already taking something that's got caffeine in it. But depending on your level of tolerance, if you're not somebody that it actually affects, I'm not sure it'll do anything for you. But that's an interesting question. Let's make that note, Bev, and look at that as well.
Yeah, come check. We can always bring that up next week. Sounds like we might have enough content here, Erin, to do a holiday-related show next week. What do you think? Do you like Erin's idea about habit? And then we could talk about tryptophan briefly. I like that idea, Angie. And we could put the cortisol episode off until after Thanksgiving.
Okay. Yeah. It actually might be a good thing to do before Christmas, since Christmas and New Year's are always the longer holidays and there's a whole lot of stress and cortisol freaks out and rises and
yeah, so we'll come up with a fun title for it. And yeah, if there's anything else you guys would like us to talk about regarding holidays next week, let us know. And we'll put together a little mix there. Maybe we'll just do some question and answer and see if we can get some question and answer. Here we go. Thank you, Billy. I don't know what I'd do without the quote of the week. Without coffee, something is missing.
Yes.
Yeah, ultimately, it's a great thing for those that can tolerate it. Thanks for answering. Tune in next week. I hope I'm saying your name right, Vikrant. And Erin is so great at going and researching. She's my research nerd.
Nerd is true.
The answer to you. And if anything, Vikrant, check the comments. She will post probably in the comments whatever she finds. And otherwise, thanks for tuning in, guys. We're here every week at 11:30 Mountain Time, which is 1:30 Eastern Time on Wednesdays. And we will be here next week before the holidays. If you liked this episode, do us a huge favor and share it. Just click the share button. Share it with your community. Sharing is a way to show that you care about people and, share that information, especially because it can be sometimes awkward to otherwise ask people about their caffeine habits. You can just be like, hey, check out this episode, because you might know some people that need to make a change with their caffeine. Beth says, love the live chat. Thanks for providing the great info. Oh, thank you. Thanks for being here. We hope to see you again next week.
Yeah.
Share the show, and we'll see you next week to talk about some tryptophan and portion control.
Yes. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.